Hey writers, I have read through all of the drafts for this class, and if there was something urgent, I've left a little comment in the discussion board. I'll keep kind of checking that and looking for different things and letting you guys know. But I went ahead and took the feedback that's most important and batched it all together for everyone to hear, and this video should accomplish that. The first thing that I want to talk about improving are the points in your essays. That would be your main point or thesis and your subpoints that are the first sentences of your pie paragraphs. So one thing that's important is that you read your main point, and whatever the order of ideas is, that should be the order of those subpoints within the essay. That might mean for you that you go back and you fix your main point in it and put it in a different order, or that you look at your main point and put your subpoints into an order that matches it. Just think about whatever works best for expressing the idea, but try to make that connection between the main point and the subpoints clearer, and especially through organization. Some of you are kind of taking off with your points and you're just writing about Chipotle or fast food or processed food in general. And while all of that is relevant to stating whether or not the video is effective or ineffective, you need to ground those statements in the idea of the video. And what that literally means is when I read your main point and each of your subpoints, I should see the words the ad or the scarecrow or the video, because any of that extra stuff is only being brought into the argument to make a statement about the video itself. Just thinking a little bit more about the order of your points, think about the fact that that order places emphasis. So if I'm like, we should do this because of A, B, and C, but there is another side to this, it kind of throws it in at the last minute and it's like, okay, so what do we believe again? Or what are you arguing? Think about that ordering and emphasis. Sometimes what's wisest to do is saying, yeah, there's this other side, but for these reasons, 1, 2, 3, this is why we land where we land. Hopefully that makes sense with the weird abstract language that I'm using right now. Since you guys are borrowing paragraphs, what is happening, especially because you're borrowing paragraphs, is that those paragraphs don't flow. And I set it up like that on purpose, because what that does is it forces you to think about transitions, hopefully, in a way that you don't often think about when you're writing your own stuff. Because when you write your own stuff, naturally you tend to flow. You know how your own ideas go in and out of each other. Now you have to think very literally, okay, how am I going to make that jump from there to there? And so if you skipped it, go back to my website, the lemircomp.weebly.com website. Go to the essays resource page. There's a video on transitions. It's going to make you feel a little silly at first when you start watching it, but that guy has great examples of how transitions facilitate critical thinking for the reader. And I can't think of anything better to demonstrate or model how a transition is written well. Your transitions should justify your organizational structure. So you might say, one thing that made the video especially effective, another thing, or the most important thing, or the most compelling thing, whatever that is for you. Just try to get that organizational structure emphasized in the subpoint. And sorry, one last thing would be that some of you guys skipped the background or summary paragraph from my essay template, that it should be intro that ends with a thesis. Next paragraph is the background information or the summary, so that we have everything we need before you start breaking into the subpoints. And you do subpoint information, explanation, connecting it back to the main point, transition, subpoint, repeat, all the way to the end, conclusion. Now let's talk a little bit about voice or tone or style or whatever you want to call it. There are a few things that I want you to avoid or eliminate with your voice. First of all, I want you to go back in and you can press the buttons on your keyboard, Control F. If you hold that down, it pops up a search window. Search for the word you, Y-O-U. You, your, yourself. Spend some time revising those sentences. Try we, try the audience, viewers, consumers, whatever fits with the general tone for the argument that you're making. The I doesn't need to be there. It's usually I think or I thought. You just cut that out and say what you think or what you thought. Another kind of tricky, weird one though is language that is student specific. And so what that means is if you're writing something like this essay will, I don't want anybody to know this is an essay. I don't even want to, it's like breaking character or something in theater. Just come out and let the essay do what you're saying it will, kind of like show, don't tell. Don't say things like, when we analyzed the video, or as my classmates. Try to get rid of all clues that you are a student and just come out like you are a thoughtful citizen and critic or something like that. Another thing I need you to be thinking about is you should be writing about this as if readers have no clue what the subject matter is. That's part of why you summarize. But what I'm noticing is a lot of your opening statements are like, in the scarecrow, da 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 da. Well, what is the scarecrow? So to your readers, you have to add in a couple little details, like in the 2013 advertisement or YouTube video, The Scarecrow, published by the company Chipotle. I'm being heavy-handed, don't copy that exactly, but you can see why we might need a little bit more of the context-specific details so that the reader, any reader, can pick it up and know exactly what this is about. In general, I would just encourage you guys to go in. A lot of you have an excellent foundation or framework for this piece of writing, but there are missed opportunities with details, whether they're adjectives to stylize your writing, or extended phrases or sentences to deepen your analysis or explain your ideas more clearly, or missing details that would provide stronger context and awareness for your readers. Adding detail is a great idea. Sometimes that also comes in the form of realizing that you've repeated details and you can condense something down to make room for something new and more valuable. Just a final comment about details. Some of you are being very literal. I'm thinking about the first sentence where you're saying, in 2013, Chipotle, the fast food company Chipotle, created an advertisement called The Scarecrow. And that's so helpful for readers. Once you get there, I just said go in, make sure you have the details. Now try to add in a little bit more flair and creativity. I was just looking over some old examples of the scarecrow and this essay, and somebody said the average American is bombarded with 3,000 advertisements per day. And that's kind of a little bit more fascinating than just the scarecrow. So think more broadly about what might intrigue people about reading this type of thing. What is the value of this kind of thinking and this kind of writing beyond the fact that I was like, you have to write about this. And you might wrestle with that a little bit. You might need to argue with me a little bit and be like, this is stupid. Why would we ever have to do something like this? In order to figure out why you would ever have to do something like this. And if you can figure that out, then maybe you can sell it to your readers a little better for why they would ever take their time reading it. All right, one more little comment about voice. I hate to say don't say, but don't say in conclusion, because that's just a, pick it up off the shelf kind of transition, like first, second, third, in conclusion. And the critique isn't just, oh, you didn't have to work hard for that. It's also that it's not a meaningful transition. So watch that transitions video that I talked about earlier. Think a little bit more about it. See if you can challenge yourself to do something more specific to what your argument is. And guys, capitalize Chipotle. Just go back in, double check, make sure you're following those basic rules. Second to last little bit of advice has to do with SIP format and works cited entries. So for now, I'm mostly avoiding comments about SIP and MLA format because it's really particular and nuanced and difficult. And I think tomorrow I'll try to get in and give you guys some better concrete advice about where you're at with that. But for now, what I want to point out is that you should have 4 sources in your works cited section: the scarecrow and 3 outside sources. So 4 sources, the scarecrow, 3 outside sources. And those outside sources are being built into the pie paragraphs to add depth to your analysis. Now, when you put them in MLA format at the end of your article or essay, put them in there in alphabetical order by the first thing listed, which is typically the last name. My phone cut me off. So you've got those outside sources listed in the works cited section. Do Control F on your keyboard and type a parentheses and see if that pulls up SIP format in your essay. That's what I'm going to do when I'm reading it. Make sure you have at least 3 instances of SIP format using each of those sources that you listed, because anything in your works cited section should be referenced in the body of the article or essay itself. And now, final extra advice. Tip number 1, read out loud. I'm sure that you hate this, but it's how you're going to catch stylistic things that are missing, things that aren't quite what you want them to be, moments of fuzziness in the thinking, in the phrasing. Read out loud. Number 2, kind of similar, if you're stuck on a point or you feel like, I know that's not as good as it needs to be, open up a new document, free write, or this was my favorite when I was a student, grab your phone, go walk your dog, or just walk in the woods and talk about it into a voice recorder. Come back and listen to it. Sometimes you can say it better if you're starting from scratch, and then you might come back and be like, that is what I meant. Why haven't I been able to find the words? And you can replace your words with these new things. So guys, that's it. I know it's a lot, but these are comments for everyone for every essay, the things that I'm finding right now to be the most imperative improvements you can make.